Please ride responsibly, safe, and obey all traffic laws.
Do you think that Marc's performance has put the things back on its place in MotoGP?
You know, I think Marc Marquez is back fit. He's got on one of the best teams' bike out there, and he's making the most of it. Right now, he's going to be very difficult to catch. I think everybody's got a lot of work to do to try and catch up to him. But once again, we saw almost several mistakes over the weekend. You know, one was crash in the rain, and then a pretty big moment yesterday in the sprint race. Anything can happen. It's racing, the pressure from other riders, hopefully not any contact from other riders. But, you know, it's never going to be easy. But Marc right now, I think, is the top of the heap.
How might this dominance be affecting Pecco?
You know, Pecco has been the lead guy at Ducati for, what, 5 years, 6 years now? His bike is following his path in development. He's obviously developed a really good bike. Maybe one he doesn't like so much, but one that Marc Marquez really, really enjoys riding. So it's got to be tough on Pecco. The last person you want to get beat by is your teammate. You know, and Pecco's doing his best, trying to score points every weekend, which is what he needs to keep doing until he finds what it is with that Ducati that's going to give him that confidence to step up and give Marc a big push.
And do you believe that he can turn this situation around?
Yeah, I mean, it may not be this weekend in Texas. It may not be next weekend wherever we go next, Doha. But, you know, anything's possible. You know, both the bikes are similar, so Pecco's got to realize that, you know, I think I'm as good a rider as Marc. I have the same equipment. I've got to find what's going to give me that confidence. And then I can start giving him some, you know, throw some challenges his direction. Anyway, maybe not beating him straight away, but pressuring for the first half of the race instead of just the first lap or two. You know, get good starts, get in the front, make him find his way around you. There's always a chance that Marc's going to make a mistake too. You know, I hope that's not the case, but you know, racing, trying to pass at that level is never easy.
What has surprised you the most, Marc's performance or Alex's performance?
I think probably Alex's performance. You know, I think Alex was showing us the end of last season that he had the speed here and there, but I mean consistently. This morning he was P6, P7. I think the furthest back I've seen him in any practice session or qualifying. I think Alex Marquez has really stepped up this year, and maybe he doesn't like getting beat by his brother, so he's pushing hard as well.
Are you concerned about this? Marc's overwhelming dominance could lead to a decline in the interest of the championship?
You know, there's always that possibility, but I think I heard someone describe it this morning. You know, it's almost makes it even more exciting to see if he can continue to win. I know us as racers don't want to see that. We want to see good competition at the front. But I'm sure Marc's dad loves seeing Marc and Alex at the front. The whole Marquez family must be just totally overwhelmed with how well they're doing. And, you know, let's see how long the dominance lasts.
What are the key factors for MotoGP to succeed again in the United States?
Well, I mean, we need riders in MotoGP, not just Moto2 and Moto3. You know, we have one rider now. We have Christian Daniel in Rookies Cup. We have you know, some young American kids that are 14, not quite old enough for Rookies Cup yet. Nike Sanchez is one. We've got some young kids that I think are doing the right things and going down the right avenues to eventually end up in MotoGP. But it's just going to take a little time. You know, for young kids like 14, it's going to be, you know, 6 or 8 or 10 years before we see them actually maybe make it to MotoGP if that's where they deserve to end up.
And how does the MotoAmerica Talent Cup can contribute to?
You know, it's the opportunity for those young kids to race together. You know, it's a similar bike to what Moto3 or pre-Moto3. I know the speeds aren't nearly as fast as Moto3 bikes are here, but this also their first race. You know, I'll keep a close eye on the American Talent Cup and see one kid really starts to stand out. Maybe that kid deserves an opportunity to go do a test with a pre-Moto 3 team or go over and do some Spanish championship racing. Just have to wait and see. Once again, it's not anything that we have a quick fix for. I don't see anybody there that's 16 or 17 or 18 that I think could go to that next level and immediately start being competitive in Moto 3 or Moto 2.
What do you think Liberty Media can bring into the sport?
What they did for Formula One seems to attract absolutely a completely new range of fans that Formula One's never had before. I have friends that call me and say, hey, I want to go to F1. I say, I didn't even know you knew anything about motorsport. I watched the Drive to Survive. It's the greatest show I've ever seen. I'm really interested in Formula One now. So, they get on board and do some big stuff like that. And I think Liberty has intentions of maybe more than one U.S. Grand Prix, trying to create more excitement around MotoGP. We just have one race, and we're convinced that the attendance isn't enough here, that we need more than one, but maybe 3 Grand Prix, 2 or 3 Grand Prix is the answer, and more people will start going to different venues and seeing different stuff.
Regarding that, there are some rumors about venues like Barber Motorsports or Palm Springs. Do you know anything about that?
I haven't heard anything about those. I was just sat in the commentary booth with Justin Marks, and he mentioned the track in Knoxville, Tennessee, just outside of Knoxville. And Tilke helped with the design of it. It's a work in progress right now. It may be a couple of years before it's a venue that's ready, but I think there's quite a few opportunities out there, places that could host a Grand Prix with maybe just a few changes to the facility.
Changing the subject a bit, Japanese manufacturers are hiring more and more European engineers and managers. How realistic do you think it is for them to make the transition and return to fighting for victories?
Yeah, I think Ducati and Aprilia both have taught the Japanese quite a few things. KTM as well. You have to try lots of different things. There's not just one correct way, and the more avenues that you test, the more opportunity you have for success. It's also the more opportunity you have for failure. But the Japanese have always been so regimented in their, when they get headed a certain direction, this is the direction we're going. Whereas, I think the European-based teams and engineers have much more open mind and want to try different things. You get 4 or 6 really good riders on your bikes, you have that much more data, that much more input from riders to be able to confirm whether your testing is the right direction or not. So, hats off to the Euros. They've done a great job, and the Japanese are slowly closing the door. Maybe it's from those European engineers that they're bringing on board. So we'll just have to wait and see. I'm impressed with Honda and Yamaha so far this year. Aprilia seems to be the bike that's struggling maybe the most, at least here at COTA. And there's no doubt they miss having the world champion on their bike. So can't wait to see Jorge Martin come back.
There's a big change in the regulations in 2027. Do you think that a return to the sports roots is necessary?
I don't know exactly what the changes are for 27, but I know I've heard that everybody's excited about there's going to be less of this and less of that, and to take the motorcycles back to being more normal, not normal, but less elaborate equipment. And, I think the racing has suffered a little bit because of it. I think we've got bikes that are aerodynamically, you can't one follow the other, it starts to overheat, the tires get too hot. There's just too much going on with the motorcycles. When my bike's not as fast as the bike in front of me, I have to stay in the draft. That's the only way I can hang on. And then I try and make challenges going into corners, into different sections of the racetrack. But with all the aero that the bikes have and all the complications they have with tire pressures and temperatures and all of that, they need to simplify things a little bit, I think.
Don't you think that 2027, with this regulation change, might be a good opportunity for a brand like Suzuki to thinking on coming back?
I'd love to see Suzuki back in Grand Prix racing. 2027 and a new set of rules. maybe they just dust off the bike from 2020 and bring it back out, and maybe that's exactly what the class specifications are. Maybe they have to make a few changes, but I think that's still a long way off, and hopefully Suzuki has the desire and the want to come back to Grand Prix racing, if MotoGP will allow it.
And the last one, how hard must be for the current world champion to stay away from the racing with the number one plate?
For Jorge, it's got to have been really, really difficult. 13 laps of testing, hurt, went home, finally starts to feel good enough that he can go do some riding again, gets hurt again, missing the first three Grand Prix as a world champion is difficult. I broke my arm leading up to the start of the season, 3 weeks before the first race, so I showed up at the first race not fit. 2 races later, I'm still racing in Japanese. I finally get to win. But Jorge's got to get back on that bike. Now that he's fit, and he's got to get mentally and physically back to going over 200 miles an hour again. The time, I used to say when I was injured, the time away from racing, it took me 3 times that to get back to where I was when I got hurt. So, it's never going to be easy, and that's, much of what we've seen with Marc Marquez. He took a long time off, and it's taken him a long time to work his way back to where he is now. So I think Martin's doing the right thing. He's taking time. He's getting fit. Physically, the hands and the feet are the two, key elements in being able to control a bike. And you want those to be 100%, especially on modern day MotoGP machinery.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.